We are live. How y'all going? How y'all going? How y'all going? How's it going? How y'all doing? All that good stuff. All right. So I'm gonna give it till 7:30 to get started. I thought I'd jump in here early and see what it do. See if anybody wanted to chit chat before we started reading the book. Tonight we will be reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune, by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. Come sit down and listen. Even if you don't buy the book or you don't even plan to read it, just come chill out. Just listen to the words as they pour forth my dulcet tones and all that other good shit. Anyways, yes, we were reading this. I keep running out of copies. By the way, anyone who has ordered the books went out today. They should be to you within the next couple of days, I would assume. But PayPal will have updated you. All that good stuff. I am exhausted. I have been sick. That's the reason I didn't stream last week. Well, I did. But yeah. Anyways. Oh, hey, Ryan. Bye, Ryan. All right. I've been waiting for you. All right. We shall have no Nazi sympathizers here. None whatsoever. Goodbye, Brian. I was hoping your ass was going to pop up last week so I could block you. I expect you'll be back. Cannot wait. All right. Nah. They never do. They never do. He got called out. And, of course, he wants to defend himself. Whatever. It's funny, though, because the ADL went back and said, oh, hang on, wait. What he did actually was the thing we all thought it was. But no, Ryan's trying to help himself sleep at night. That's who he voted for. All right. Lazy, how you doing? Are you doing good? So where we left off was, oh yeah, they're on their way. Well, I don't want to tell you where they're going, but yeah, they're on their way. Yeah. All right. I know where we are. We're good to go. All right. Well, we already got people coming in, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it. Let me get this over here. Who is this suave, handsome fellow on my screen? That's the mayor from A Nightmare Before Christmas. Oh, you're talking about the book. It's a handsome feller, isn't it? It is a handsome feller. I'm still finishing up my cold, so... Oh, by the way, Lazy, did you get an email from PayPal? I hope you did. I'm sorry it's taken so long, but the book is on its way. It left my possession today. So, you'll be getting it shortly. Let's see here. Who else? Derek's copy's on the way. Raisa, I believe that's how you pronounce your name. I don't know if you watch these or not. I'm assuming you do because you ordered one from this link. Raisa, Raisa. If you're watching this, yours is on the way. Also, James, your copy is on the way. And a bunch of other people that I don't think I've ever talked to. So all your copies are on the way. There was only one copy I was unable to ship, and that is my good friend Bill's copy. Ended up I didn't have enough copies. So, but it's coming. It's coming. I already emailed and let Bill know. But let's jump into this. Let's go ahead and do this. All right. Hello, everybody. All right. So we are on page of the paperback edition. We're on page 122. Subchapter 9 of Chapter 2. Okay. For those of you who don't know, you can get this book on Amazon. It won't have this ugly bar. It's like I need to order myself a regular copy. Every time I order copies, they go right back out. So it doesn't come with this stupid bar. This is just my proof copy. Let's see here. What else do you need to know? The links are down there in the doobly-doo. You can get a signed copy from me. It is going to be 2 weeks from today before I can even ship them to you. Just to let you know. But I'm waiting on more copies. I ordered them today when I realized I didn't have enough to fill the orders, the last order of the day. You can buy a signed copy from me, or you can get the ebook or the paperback over on Amazon. All right. All those links are down there in the doobly-doo. Let's jump back into this. All right. So I've been thinking, said Knuckles. They were maybe 2 miles farther down the road, the train perhaps 5 or so miles behind them, and Sandoval wasn't doing well. His gait had stiffened, and he'd started favoring his right hip, tilting his entire frame left and wincing every time his foot landed on the track. She'd been watching Sandoval in her peripheral vision when Knuckles had spoken, but didn't immediately process what the big man had said. She asked the tent man to repeat himself. Just been thinking about that old man back there. Something struck me a second ago, and I can't shake it. What's that? She asked. Well, Knuckles said, shading his eyes with one big paw as he gazed upward. His eyes seemed to look past the sky. Again, she wondered what was going on in that skull. What thoughts Knuckles hid from those around him, unspoken, yet concerning enough to warrant rumination. I think he might have a still out here. She considered this. You think he was worried we were looking for his moonshining operation? Knuckles shrugged. I don't rightly know, Mother. Just a hunch. He seemed, I don't know, on guard. Who cares what that old bastard were doing? Sandoval said, his voice laced with grit and frustration. She could only assume over his escalating pain. But then again, it didn't take much to raise old Sandy's ire. I ain't saying I care, said Knuckles. I'm saying he does. I get a sense sometimes about people, and I think we might have just got away from him with our heads intact. Could be, I suppose, said Mother Nurture. Nothing we can do about it either way. He's long behind us. True, said the tent boss. Knuckles' eyes stayed skyward, prompting Mother Nurture to say, What are you looking at, Knuck? Oh, nothing. Not really looking at nothing. Nothing to see. Nothing to hear. His voice trailed off, and in the newly fallen silence, Mother Nurture could hear the nothingness of which Knuckles spoke. We're out here in God's own country, Knuckles continued. Not a soul in sight, but there ain't no sound. No birds, no frogs, no chittering insects. Nothing but nothing. Yeah, said Peter. You're right. I hadn't noticed before you said something, but yeah, you're spot on. Jesus Christ, y'all some spooky sorts, Sandoval put in. You haven't spent much time in the woods, have you, Duck? Knuckles said. You gonna quit calling me that? That name's for the ladies, seeing as how my cock's long as a duck's neck. Peter laughed. It's short for conductor, you fool. Sandoval's face scrunched, and it was clear as moonshine to Mother Nurture that Sandoval had never considered from where the secondary nickname had spawned. God damn it! Are you serious? Sandoval barked. The three of them chuckled as their companion struggled with this new revelation. Poor guy, Mother Nurture thought. He couldn't find a clue if it was pinned to his forehead. But that was Sandoval. But for all his faults, ignorance just one of dozens, he was a good man. For a drunken asshole, anyway, she added inwardly. She knew more about his history than anyone else. He confided in her numerous times. She was the group's therapist in that regard, always there to listen, never advising, staying silent while her family unloaded their inner burdens, and he was happy with that role. No matter how rough or heart wrenching some of their stories could be. And she knew well how Sandy's mother had beaten him every time she'd gotten drunk, and how his own need for alcohol had stemmed from her tendency to pour him a shot after every beating, starting him on the hooch as young as 9 years old. His mother had called both his beatings and his imbibing Johnny's medicine. Think we'll see that old guy again? Mother Nurture asked Knuckles. Anything's possible. But we should stay awares in any case, said Knuckles. Jesus! Sandoval shouted suddenly. That old break of wind ain't gonna do nothing, for pity's sake. He's already drunk as a shit-faced skunk somewheres. He's already drunk as a shit-faced skunk somewheres, dreaming of naked women he ain't ever seen, much less touched. Trust me, I know my own better than I know my own damn self. At least you're honest, Peter said, giggling. That much can be said about you. Clamp your lips, Peter. I ain't in the mood. How much farther you think, Knuckles? Asked Peter. Knuckles sighed. No telling, really. I ain't never recorded my steps, but I'd guess another few hours still yet. That's if we keep this pace. Sandy ain't doing too good. That limp's getting worse and worse. I'm fine, you big lump. Worry about yourself. Old Sandy's been through worse. Sandoval shot back. How much daylight we got left? Mother Nurture asked, trying her best to keep the omnipresent silence accompanying them on their trek. Trying her best to ignore, sorry, my eyes not doing well tonight. Mother Nurture asked, trying her best to ignore the omnipresent silence accompanying them on their trek. About 2 hours before sundown, I reckon, but I ain't no Injun, Mother. Them folks can look at the sun and tell you the time to the second. I knowed one fellow who could dance and make it pour rain. I swear to God he could. Damnedest thing I ever did see. I don't want to walk into this town. What did he call it? Greenboro? Mother Nurture asked. Greenbolt, I believe he said. Peter corrected. Right. I don't want to walk in the Greenbolt after dark, especially not after what that old man said about them not. Well, you heard him. Don't forget that you got me with your mother, said Knuckles, grinning with pride. Nuck won't let anything happen to you, I promise. I know, you beautiful man, but I don't want any trouble, even if you can handle it. What am I, chopped liver? Sandoval asked. You sure as hell smell like liver after it's spent 3 days in the sun, Peter said. Keep joking about me, Paper. Keep on. Oh, I plan to, Ducky. Mother, Sandoval growled. Get your paper before I roll his ass up and smoke him. You both quit. And Knuckles? Yes'm. I think we need to find a place to camp. Think you can handle that? Knuckles' brow furrowed. I reckon I can, yes, but are you sure you don't want to at least find this Greenbolt place first? Scout it out and whatnot? Seems that'd be the way to go here. Good point, Mother Nurture said, sliding an arm around his waist. I'm glad you came, Knuckles. Wouldn't have it any other way, Mother. Back at the train, Uncle Jaime is sitting in his cabin, staring into the empty petty cash box, attempting to manifest money from thin air, when he hears an engine approaching through the open rear door of the caboose. He stands and walks out onto the back platform, leans against the handrail, and stares down the track. The vehicle is low and black and smattered here and there with reddish-brown dirt. Desert dust, he knows. Whoever this is, they've been following them since at least western Texas, if the state of the car was any clue. Dread builds in his guts as he threads his way through the train to get the tent men. If there's going to be trouble, he needs to be ready for it. What up, Derek? All right. I take a break every time we get to a subchapter. So if you're interested in the book that I'm reading, it's The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson, my new pen name. You can grab a signed copy. It's going to be 2 weeks before you can get a signed copy. Well, at least 2 weeks before I can ship it, because I'm waiting on more to come from Amazon. But if you're fine waiting 3 weeks to a month, the link's down there in the doobly-doo. Also, you can buy a copy from Amazon. It might come a little bit quicker, but from what I understand, they're slowing down right now because of boycotts and strikes and all different kinds of stuff. But you can get an ebook and read it right now if you want to. 10. The city of Greenbolt, Louisiana was much larger than Mother Nature had expected. Even in the midst of economic recession, the town seemed to thrive. Open businesses alive with customers lined either side of the main strip. Street lamps glowed, haunting every building with a legion of shadows. People milled about on and in the street, all dressed in suits and dresses, shine shoes and fancy hats. Her group lurked at the tree line that surrounded the city like a great ring. But Mother Nature could not see any roads leading in or out of town. Although the train tracks ran slightly parallel to the city, even Main Street, whose name was carved into a wooden sign a few feet from where they were hidden, dead-ended ahead, running to termination at the tree line half a mile away. The odd nature of the town suffused her with dread the moment she set eyes on it, and the more she surveyed, the weirder it got. A young boy, his eyes incandescent with lamplight, stared at her from in front of the corner store straight ahead. He cocked his head, on top of which sat a jaunty cap, lending him the air of a newsie. He, too, like the adult men moving along the sidewalks, wore a brown suit with a brown tie and a yellow undershirt beneath it all. His shine shoes shone like his eyes. "You hear that?" Knuckles asked, drawing her attention from the boy. "I don't hear anything," said Mother Nature. When she glanced back, the boy was gone. She scanned the folks moving through the town, yet found no sign of him, as if he'd never existed in the first place. Exactly. Knuckles took a step back, and Mother Nature instinctively did the same. "I don't like this, Mother. Something ain't right here." "Yeah," she said. "I feel it too. Let's head back a good ways and stake camp. We'll sleep till daylight, then see if we can find someone to help us out." "You think these folks are gonna want to help us? I don't get the sense these folks are interested in charity," Knuckles said. "They look peaceable enough to me," Peter put in. "The peaceable seeming ones is the ones you gotta watch out for, Paper," said Knuckles. "Then why the hell did we come all this way for?" Sandoval growled in a low voice. "What other choice did we have, Sandy?" Mother Nature whispered back. "I don't know. You're the one leading this expedition." "That's a mighty big word, Sandy. Congratulations," Peter mocked. "Go to hell, Paper." "We need sleep, and you need to rest that hip of yours," said Mother. "We'll plan this out in the morning." "Damn leg," Sandoval muttered. Knuckles found a clearing a ways from town, making sure there was no standing water anywhere around them. Mother Nature thanked the old-timer inwardly for his advice about the local snake population. Last thing they needed was a moccasin biting any one of them in their sleep, although she suspected Sandoval would survive an entire nest's worth of poison out of sheer stubbornness. The three men dropped trow, revealing long john bottoms on each of them, and used their pants as pillows, while Mother Nature laid down and rested her head in the crook of one folded elbow. Knuckles and Peter's low conversation droned a few feet from her, their voices lulling her to sleep, despite the snores like grumbling thunder in the distance coming from Sandoval. Mother Nature slept dreamlessly for a time, until something roused her. She woke, hackles raised. She woke, hackles raised, staring into utter darkness, the full moon failing to break through the thick canopy of trees overhead. She sat up and listened. Nothing. She couldn't even hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Something's very, very wrong. Mother, Peter hissed. Shh, she hissed back. As she stared into the impenetrable darkness, stars in pairs appeared through the trees ahead, hundreds of them, some twinkling, and others still unblinking. Unblinking. What are those? Peter stage whispered. Hush up, I'm trying to sleep over here, Sandoval grunted, his voice heavy with sleep. Get up, Sandy. Wake Knuckles up now. Mother Nature got to her feet, refusing to look away from the impossible stars that had come to occupy the forest around her instead of the sky beyond the canopy. A set of eyes, for that's what they were, if she were honest with herself. Eyes, hundreds of them, moved forward, blinking, shuddering on and off like paired fireflies. Why couldn't she hear them? Surely no human being could be that quiet while stepping through the detritus of a forest floor. Dread poured over her like ice. Goose flesh popped across her skin, and she shivered involuntarily. What the hell was going on? Was it only her fear, or had the air surrounding her dropped several degrees? Knuckles! She hollered. Wake up! I'm up. She heard but did not see the tent man moving about, getting to his feet and blocking several sets of glowing eyes, his body a stark black figure against the backdrop of approaching lights. A second later, Knuckles said, The hell are those? Lightning bugs. Damn the eyes. The scariest part for Mother Nature was the silence. The eyes she could see, but why in hell couldn't she hear them? What do you want? She finally called out to whoever, or whatever, had surrounded them in their sleep. Fuck it, Sandoval said a split second before his lighter sparked, painting his face in flickering orange light. Something, Mother Nature could see, stood directly behind Sandoval. Something reptilian, covered in pearlescent scales, mercurial in the glow of the windproof lighter's flame. A hand, if you could call the thing a hand, because it looked far more like a claw than any hand she'd ever seen, appeared on Sandoval's shoulder, and Mother Nature saw the conductor freeze, the abstract, unfettered terror in his eyes as he craned his neck, moving the lighter aloft, revealing what had touched him. And Mother Nature caught the briefest glimpse of a triangular face floating above Sandoval, its forked tongue whipping from its improbable mouth. Before the conductor screamed bloody murder, his explosive shriek blowing out the lighter's flame, plummeting them into oppressive darkness filled with eyes like stars. Get off me! Knuckles roared in the fresh dark. She heard the tent man wrestling with something, but couldn't see what was happening. What she wouldn't give for cat's eyes in that moment, to see what danger had befallen her friend, and whether he was winning. Then, "You better stay down," Knuckles growled. Then, Mother, where you at? Here," she called to him. She could hear Knuckles moving toward her. Or was that the approach of the thing she'd witnessed in the glow of Sandoval's lighter? A hand touched her left breast, and she shrieked. It's me," Knuckles said breathlessly. "Where's Paper? Sandy?" I don't know," she said, quaking all over with fear. "Sandy? Paper? I'm here," Peter said in a low voice. "I'm reaching out." She felt his hand on the small of her back and allowed herself a sigh of relief. But what about Sandoval? "God damn it! Sandy, answer us!" Knuckles nearly shouted. "Down here," said a small voice from what seemed like only a few feet ahead. It let me go. I ain't moved none. Right where you saw me." Then, suddenly, light from behind them, and in that light, Mother Nature caught flickering figures slithering out of sight, snaking through and up the trees, there and gone in a blink. Then, suddenly, born instantly in the night, chugging, the unmistakable, far-off chugging of an approaching train. Other night sounds filtered in, the sounds they had expected to hear along the tracks after meeting the old man yesterday afternoon. Crickets, frogs, the quick brushing strokes of leaves stirring in the breeze. "That can't be us, can it? That can't be our train, right?" Knuckles said. "What were those things?" Peter cut in. "Unnatural bastards," Sandoval grunted as he got to his feet. "Come on," Mother Nature said, and they were off, snaking through the woods, following the blessedly burning light growing ever larger in the distance, the trees throwing shadows like javelins across them as they ran. If you're just now joining us, probably not. There's only 3 people in here. Reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flamin' Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo if you want to grab one on Amazon. There's an ebook and a paperback. And you can also get a signed copy from me. Those links are down there. Just let you know, as of January 29th, tonight, I am out of copies, signed copies. I've just put in the order today, but it's going to take a week to 2 weeks to get to me, and then it would take another week or 2 weeks to get to you. So just keep that in mind if you decide to get one. What is that, Lazy? Is that some orange monster? What in the world is going on? What is that? Oh, is he chomping his teeth? It was scary. Okay, I not chomping his teeth, chomping his nails. Rad. Yeah, we're finally getting into some of the more juicy bits. 11. They found the tracks easily by following that ever-widening light. The closer they got, the louder the chugging became until they couldn't hear their own voice over the din. "That's her, all right," said Sandoval, happier than she'd heard him in ages. "That's my girl. I'd know her sweet, sweet voice anywhere." His aching hip forgotten, Sandoval ran ahead, or what amounted to running for the bellied boozer, his shadow playing out behind him like something possessed. He began waving his arms and shouting, "Whoever's driving her better not have messed up anything." How'd they get the old girl going without any fuel?" Knuckles asked, head swiveling on high alert. "I guess we'll find out here shortly," said Mother Nature. A whistle sounded, a high, warbling keening that pierced the night like a spear through cheesecloth, and Mother Nature knew for sure this was her train, her circus, her family. Like Sandoval and the sound of his beloved engine, she would have known that belligerent tea kettle screech anywhere. She stepped into a jogged until she was sprinting, running, putting on speed, wanting to create as much distance as possible between herself and whatever lay behind them. whatever had slithered out of view in the illumination of the train's forelight beam. Snakes. Snakes with arms and legs, shaped like us, or like people. A minute later, they came upon the train, and the engine in turn chugged to a stop a few feet from where Sandoval stood in the middle of the tracks, waving his arms over his head like a plumb fool. A figure dropped from the a figure dropped from the engine compartment and stepped into the light. Hank Prouse, his face still caked with dried blood from when the religious nut had slugged him back in Mooseville, Texas, smiled in the brightness, looking fit for nightmares. Mother Nurture wasn't scared, though. She was truly overjoyed to see him, to be saved, to be out of whatever hellscape they had wandered into outside of Greenbolt, Louisiana. Can I offer you good folks a ride home? Hank said, cheesing beautifully, as if posing for a glamour shot. I love you, you beautiful man, Mother Nurture shouted and threw her arms around him. From behind, Knuckles' voice, how'd you get her running, Hank? And who taught you how to drive my baby girl? Sandoval barked. Hank laughed. I got all kinds of tricks up my sleeve, Duck. Train driving's just one of them. Sandoval seemed to ignore the use of duck and offered Hank his hand. Tonight's just full of surprises. You better treat her right, by God. She's come to no harm, sir. I promise you. Good man. Sandoval clapped Hank on the bicep with the hand not currently involved in the handshake. Hank leaned around Sandoval and spoke to Knuckles. Some white fella came to our rescue. Ran Unc up to the nearest town. Got some coal. Brought it back. Said he knew you, mother. Said he knew me? She asked, shocked and more than a mite confused. Is he still here? No, ma'am. He said he'd meet us up to the next train station, said Hank. We didn't have no way of taking his car with us, Unc said. Also, the fella said he'll be in Mobile when we get there. Though, nice looking fella, driving one of them Hudson automobiles. Nice car. Fella's got money, no doubt about that. Say, Nuck, what the hell happened to your neck? Hank asked, his face crinkled with disgust. Mother Nurture looked to the tent man and saw what Hank had seen. Blood. Lots of it. Draining from 2 puncture wounds in Knuckles' neck. Down and across his shoulder and chest. How she hadn't noticed it before was beyond her. Perhaps the situation they just escaped could be blamed for her lack of observation. But that excuse didn't sit right with her. She could recall, almost perfectly, seeing Knuckles in the train's headlamp, and his neck had not been bleeding then. Had it? Something bit me, but I'm all right. Knuckles touched the bite marks and winced, but made no further complaints. What was it? You look snake bit to me, said Hank. Might be poisonous, boss. You need to get that looked at. Hang on. Mother, you mind checking me out inside, away from... He hitched his chin in the direction of Greenbolt. She didn't like the uncertainty in his eyes. It looked too much like fear, and Knuckles, afraid, was nothing she wanted to witness. If the man were to come across an angry mama bear and her cubs in the wilderness, the bear would be the one to call for help. Yeah, let's get inside and down the tracks. I want to meet our mystery man. Any idea who our savior is, Mother? Peter asked. I got an inkling who it might be. Then wistfully to herself, silly gringo. We're reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune, by S.E. Johnson, my new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo. You can grab one off Amazon, ebook, or paperback, or you can order a signed copy from me. I'm out right now. It's going to take a week or two for me to get more, but as soon as they come in, I'll ship them out as soon as I get them. Thank you. Back to it. We are on subchapter 12, page 132. The Cortez family circus rolled on. Before checking on Knuckles' wounds, Mother Nurture lingered at her cabin's picture window, set firmly between her shelves of literature and the varied and numerous lives and experiences contained there, staring out into the night, watching, looking for any sign of the town of Greenbolt, Louisiana, and its strange go-nowhere streets. On their journey to find help, she and her companions had followed the rails into the city, which had run slightly parallel to the tracks, as noted earlier, and had stepped right into town. Now, though, she couldn't find hide nor hair of the quaint, if suspicious, township. Not a street, building, or street lamp was visible. Add to that, the moon was full, and painted everything beyond the glass with a sickly gray glow, as if the spotlight of some great diseased god's eye shone down on all. We had to have passed it by now. Frustrated and weary from the road, Mother Nurture grabbed her patch-up kit and headed through the train to the tent men's car, where Knuckles lay in his bunk, clutching a balled-up handkerchief to his neck. Marianne kept watch over the injured man from a chair she had retrieved from her own cabin and placed beside his compartment. She was reading a battered copy of Ulysses by James Joyce. The volume had been a gift from Mother Nurture, which she had ordered from the United Kingdom to skirt the bastardized American edition, which had been altered immensely from the original text, much to the author's famously lamented chagrin. "How are you?" Mother Nurture asked the tent boss. "He's a stubborn patient," Marianne answered for him, at which time Knuckles rolled his green eyes. "Doesn't want to stay still. I keep having to tell him to sit tight. Mother will be in shortly, but he doesn't listen. Such a man." Mother Nurture smiled. "Cheers. And Knuckles, stop being such a man." Knuckles once more rolled his eyes, but the gesture was quickly followed by a sly grin. You wouldn't have me any other way, ladies, and y'all know it," he said, chuckling. "I have him now," Mother Nurture told Marianne. "You go read in peace, Quill. Enjoying the book?" "It's mad as a hatter. Can't tell when anyone is talking, but it's keeping my attention." "It's not for everyone, and don't feel obligated to finish it. Getting it for you was my pleasure. Oh, I'll finish it. I'm just as stubborn as our tent boss over here. Good night, you hard-headed cad," Marianne said lovingly and patted Knuckles on one muscled forearm. "These get any bigger and we'll have to change your name from Knuckles to something more fitting, like Popeye." "Who?" asked Mother Nurture and Knuckles, their voices not quite synced, the former sounding like the latter's echo. Marianne frowned. "Never mind. He's got a few years before he shows up. Good night, you two," she said, taking her leave. "I hate it when she does that," Knuckles said once Marianne was out of earshot. "It's those cards of hers. She's never wrong," said Mother Nurture. She sat on the edge of his bunk, bid him sit up, and he did. She peeled the handkerchief away from his neck, saw the wound had finally quit leaking. She cleaned the bites as gently as she could with grain alcohol, wiping away crusted blood with a clean handkerchief from a supply of them Knuckles kept handy. "Looks good, but we'll have to watch it for infection. No telling what kind of sickness those, whatever they were, had." "I reckon if they were poisonous, I'd already be dead, or at the very least, feeling some effects, right?" "I say that's a logical estimation. The bite's red and angry, but that's to be expected. Here, let me bandage this so you can go get some rest." Knuckles craned his neck, his chin floating up and away from her. She applied gauze to the site, then taped everything in place. Knuckles thanked her and lay back down. He started to say, "What were those?" But she cut him off. "If there's one thing I've learned from life with a traveling circus, it's not to question that which you cannot reason with or change. Some things just are. This world is full of wonders, kind and evil, beautiful and terrifying. And we can postulate all we'd like, but we'll never know for sure. We're alive, and that's all that matters, no?" "I suppose you're right." Knuckles tucked his hands behind his head, then stuffed them under his pillow. "I, for one, am happier than Sandy and his cups that our ride came along when it did. We were damn lucky, I'd say." "Luck rarely has anything to do with it. That, too, I learned from this nomadic existence. Sleep well, Knuckles." "You too, Mother." Knuckles closed his eyes, and Mother left the way she'd come in. She found Uncle Jaime in his caboose, rummaging through financial paperwork. A burlap sack, the kind banks use to transport cash and coin, sat in a pile on his roll-top desk, which was pushed into the one corner of the room. "What's that?" she asked, and took a seat on the sofa where she'd made love not 4 days prior to a man she hardly knew, a man she thought she'd not see nor hear from again until the circuit brought him back into her life, if for nothing else than one more fleeting night of coital bliss. Sometimes she wondered why she hadn't taken him to her own cabin, why she'd kept her secret space from him, yet shared with him her marijuana, her body. But nothing came of these thoughts, and soon her mind caught up, and her attention belonged to her uncle once more. Uncle Jaime laughed softly, said, "Money, loads of it. I haven't counted it yet, but that man of yours just handed it over. Damnedest thing, Mother. Him coming out of nowhere like he did. A white knight in more ways than one." "Fate is fate. I do not question the fates either, if that's what you were about to say, and I predict I'm correct. We spoke, he and I, while he drove me to find coal for the engine. He's a kind, smart soul, Mother. I see why you like him. I too found him pleasant company." "Did he say where he was going?" "He said he'll meet us in Mobile, which is our second to next stop. We filled his trunk with coal in Shriner, Nothingburg, a few miles south of here, but we'll need more by Biloxi. I imagine we can load up on supplies and fuel and whatever else we need there and be back on the rails by afternoon. Oh, and get this, Shriner, where we got the coal, specializes in trains. Only factory in the city limits. And they just happen to build cars and mold wheels for Northwestern Railway. What are the odds? And don't you say fate. That's more convenient than I'm comfortable with." Mother Nurture politely zipped her lips. Uncle Jaime hitched his chin at the bag of money and said, "I was just about to count these, if you'd like to join me." Over the next few minutes, they flipped through the bills, finished, started over again, got the same sums, then added each other's totals together. $100,000. Even. All in hundreds. Mother Nurture hadn't seen so much cash in one place at one time in well over a decade. "He gave us this?" she asked. "He wouldn't take no for an answer. Not that I begged him to keep his charity, mind. I told him we would consider this a loan that we would repay in the near future. I had no idea how much it was when I said that, though. This is 2 years' profit, all at once. It would take a decade to repay, and only if we suffered not a single financial pitfall in all those in all 10 of those years. Might need to raise the price of admission next circuit. You said yourself that he won't accept it, and I'm sure he will not. I I told him we were struggling. Last we spoke. He wanted to come with me when we left, but I said no, that we couldn't afford it. I had no idea he would track us down. I'll speak with him when we reach Mobile. Uncle Jaime nodded. He loves you, you know. Yes, I know. Do you feel the same? Uncle Jaime asked kindly. I don't know how I feel, she said. Part of me is guarded and always will be where my heart is concerned. But there's more than a little something special about him. Some things I can put a finger on, she smiled knowingly, while others remain mysteries. Still, he is very sweet, as you said, kind and smart, but I feel guarded, like I said, and I have no idea why that should be. It sounds like you're in love too. Could be. But what do I do with that, if that is the truth of the matter? How do you mean? Exactly what I said. What do I do with love? I've only ever loved platonically. You, my parents, our family here, the circus as a whole. I've never known romantic love. If I do love him as a lover, what do I do with that? Uncle Jaime frowned. I'm still not following you. All it takes to love someone, romantically or otherwise, is to love them. It requires no effort on your part, nor on theirs. Love is simple. Relationships are where things get difficult. If you want this man and he wants you, that is all that matters. Everything else will fall into place. It's not that easy. Why not? I am me. I am myself. To allow someone into me is to risk altering something vital, something I've worked my entire life to be. And what might that be? Alone. The cabin fell into a deep silence while Uncle Jaime considered her words. He laid a hand on hers, said, We must all be alone, but none of us should be. It is good that you are comfortable being you and only you, but to ignore your feelings based on some preconceived notion that alone is the only way you should be seems horribly limiting. And to be frank, it also feels like a tragedy. I can only assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel this started with the passing of my brother and his wife, your parents. She nodded. I depended so completely on them for everything. And once they were gone, I was left with nothing. I had to learn how to be alone because they were always there for me, as were you. And I love you dearly for it, Uncle, but I can only be honest with you, honest to a fault, I suppose, because I will never love you in the same way I loved my parents. Oh, I know that. I would not have it any other way. But I would add, you will never love me in the same way that you love this man, either. Should it be love that you feel, and that, too, I am perfectly fine with. We have our love, an uncle and his niece, and it keeps us close, but all love is different. All love, too, will end one day. Nothing lasts forever, and we should enjoy love when and as it comes, if it is mutual, maybe even when it is unrequited. After a moment, she said, Why have you never married? My lord, what a segue that was! Uncle Jaime cried with laughter. When he composed himself, he continued, I am not built for romantic love, I fear. I do not feel the same attraction that seems to be present in you. May I be blunt? Of course you may. Your voracious need to couple confuses me. And since we're being honest, it also offends my sensibilities, such as they are. Just the idea of swapping bodily fluids, it just. Uncle Jaime shivered violently, and she thought he might actually be sick if he failed to chew back whatever was bubbling up his throat. Finally, with great effort, he composed himself and said, "Suffice it to say, I do not see why anyone enjoys sex. And let that be my answer for now. I have not married because you must consummate a marriage, and I am consumed enough with myself, thank you very much. To each their own, I suppose. Who am I to say how you feel is right or wrong? Thank you for answering. I had always wondered, but never felt compelled to ask until tonight." "This morning," Uncle Jaime corrected. "We're nigh on 3 o'clock in the a.m. Sun will be up in little more than 2 hours. You should get some sleep. Oh, before you go, did you know Hank could drive a train?" "I did not, but I'm glad he does. He is full of mysteries, that one. And I love a good mystery. I should think I'd like to get to know him better." Uncle Jaime noticed the way she looked at him and added, "Don't be absurd. I just told you I am not keen on swapping fluids with anyone, Mother, Hank included." "I didn't say a word," she said, grinning. "You didn't have to. I can read you like Quill reads her cards, like Knuckles can measure wood without a ruler. I have a sense for you, child." He reached out and petted her cheek. "I only want what's best for you. And that is a good man you found. He doesn't give off the same vibrations as so many other members of my gender do. Like you, I cannot put my finger on it. He's just different, but in a good way. Oh, I know exactly what you mean. And there's a reason you have that feeling about him. But it's not for me to tell." Uncle Jaime nodded understandingly. "Go, sleep. Tomorrow is another day full of possibilities. Good night, Uncle. Good night, my dear." You got your ace representation, Lazy. I told you it was in this one. I told you, ace representation. This book has everything. Everything and everybody. Anything you could possibly want in the book, this book has it. Links are down there in the doobly-doo. You can buy a signed copy from me, or you can get one off Amazon if you don't care nothing about my chicken scratch. Yeah, Amazon is ebook and paperback. Both versions available. All right, I'm going to read one more subchapter, and then I'm going to go ahead and take my break. 13. He'd been on the train's tail for days, catching cat naps here and there, never sleeping more than an hour, but was only now getting tired of the road. Catching up with the circus had been his only goal, his one priority, and he finally had. But he couldn't stand another minute of riding the tracks. The bounce and racket of the Hudson's tires thumping along cross ties, the rattling cacophony of its frame, and the man he'd spoken to, Jaime Cortez, the ringmaster, had said they had no way to transport his grandfather's Hudson. So here he is, on paved road once again, and his tailbone thanks him. In El Paso, he purchased a clay pot to replace his coffee can planter, and his mother's time seemed to be thriving after the switch. He'd worried he'd killed it that first day when he and Cassie Rutledge had unearthed Grandpa Henry's treasure, had watched the leaves wilt while the plant adjusted to its new home, but it had survived, and now it wouldn't stop growing. Along with the original 4 stalks he'd transplanted, 5 new sprouts had broken the surface and were already 2 inches tall. His babies. Father Time, he mused. Another few hours still to go to Mobile. if he didn't calculate all the stops he'd need to make to ask for directions. Following the train had been easy enough because they'd never switched tracks and had passed recently enough through any places with switches so that folks working at those respective stations recalled the circus passing through and in which direction they had gone. A circus train was, by design, hard to miss. A few more hours, and he could allow himself a room for the night, perhaps in a swanky hotel, if Mobile, Alabama provided such lodgings. He was getting used to being wealthy and having no one with whom to check in before spending money. Grandpa Henry had never denied him anything, had always given him freedom to spend as he wanted, but Father Time had, in the past, felt chained by a non existent expectation that every penny that could be saved should be saved, lest their fortunes reverse and find them once more in the grip of poverty. But now he wanted little to nothing to do with the money his grandfather had worked so hard for, ill-gotten gains or no, beyond using it to find Mother Nurture, a woman he'd only known as Carmen before last night. Her uncle, the ringmaster, had been suspicious and skeptical of Father Time's intentions, and rightly so, for Father Time assumed that he himself would have acted in the same manner had their roles been reversed. So he drives onward toward the phallus end of America that is Florida. But if Florida were the dangling penis of the states, would that make Alabama the asshole? He's about to find out. Mother Nurture was shaken awake. Her eyes fluttered open, and she found Marianne above her, the woman's eyes wide with terror. Quill? She said, sitting up and thumbing sleep from her eyes. What's wrong? Daylight was bright through her picture window, but she assumed by its diffuse yet minimal glow that it was still early morning. She'd gotten maybe 3 hours sleep and needed hours more to be able to function properly. That, or some mighty strong coffee. I turn my heater off. It's Knuckles! Hurry, quick! Marianne said, pulling at Mother Nurture's wrists. I'm coming. Let me get... She had been about to say, let me get dressed, when she looked down and found she had never changed out of the clothes she'd been wearing during yesterday's hike. She smelled awful, too, was in terrible need of fresh attire and a bath, but all that would have to wait. Mother Nurture followed close on Marianne's heels, through the train, into the tent men's car in utter chaos. Every tent man was out of his bunk, and half of them, 5 in all, were struggling to keep Knuckles contained to his bunk. The big man was thrashing, throwing himself all over despite the strong hands grappling with him. But even in the modicum of light raining from overhead, for there were no windows by design in the car, so that the men could rest uninterrupted by sunlight, she could see that something was horribly wrong with Knuckles, namely, his neck. Around the bandage she had secured there was a growth, scaled and jagged, and for a moment she thought the wound had gotten infected, but no, gangrene didn't spread so quickly, and given the site of the wound, had circulation been compromised there, Knuckles would already be dead. Sepsis would have pumped directly into his brain. Lights out. Hope you enjoyed the show. What happened? Mother Nurture hollered over the din of voices, begging Knuckles to relax, and the ruckus of the battle as it raged on. He just woke up kicking like a stud round a mare in heat, said Hank, who looked as half asleep as she felt. Started screaming bloody hell, woke us all up. He slugged Randy in the jaw, knocked me down the hall, before the others got him back in his bunk. Knuckles, she cried. Knuckles, hey, it's Mother. What's wrong? It Hurts, he bellowed. Let me in. Get off him and let me in. The tent men reluctantly retreated, but Knuckles continued to thrash. His solid head slammed into the cabin wall with a meaty thunk as his arms and legs flailed at invisible attackers. Mother Nurture took a deep breath, raised her leg, and stomped. The train vibrated. A far different tremor than the typical rumble and sway of the wheels on the tracks, and Knuckles ragdolled, suddenly as limp as a cold hot dog. His eyes were open, and he was awake, but his gaze had lost its frenzied stare. Glassy eyes looked up at her uncomprehendingly, and he groaned, "It hurts." Let me see. No, put your hands down. Right, just relax, she said in a soft, hypnotizing voice, and Knuckles did as he was told, melting into his bed, his arms puddling at his sides. There, that's right. It's me, Mother. I only want to help. There, calm. She tore the bandage from Knuckles' neck in one quick motion, taking hair from his nape along with it, and the cowed man didn't so much as flinch. His eyes held an inkling of understanding, said that he knew why she was there and what she was doing, but also that the pain was unbearable. Help me, those eyes pleaded, and in that moment she realized how horribly yellow his sclera were, jaundiced and rheumy, so dark that they almost blended with those emerald irises of his. Then she looked at what the bandage had covered and gasped. She couldn't help herself. The reaction was immediate, visceral, and she'd been incapable of holding it back. What the hell? Hank said. Mother? Marianne said in a haunted voice. What is that? Mother Nurture could only stare in disbelief. From the tiny puncture wounds of the bite radiated scaly flesh, green and armored, thick patches of it, spreading in a perfect circle, and spreading still, even as she watched in utter astonishment, creeping up his neck, crawling under and then over his chin, inching bit by bit onto his face, thinning his lips, replacing them completely, until Knuckles opened his mouth to speak and hissed instead, his tongue splitting, bloodlessly forking, flicking from his mouth in quick swipes. When the tent man finally managed to speak, his voice was nothing more than the susurration of incoming tide. It hurts. All right, break time. We have very few pages, not very few, but we got about an hour left. And we'll get that done tonight, but I need to take a break. I need to get up and move around. Yeah, we only have like 18 more pages left to go. All right, so y'all chill, and I will be back in about 10 minutes, and we will continue. I also need to do something about my ear because it sounds like the ocean is just whoosh, whoosh. I don't know. I've been sick, so my ears are probably plugged. Anyways, but let me leave my on break note. All right. Okay. 10 to 15. Bye. Alright, I'm back. Let's see here. Do that. Unpin that. Alright. Let's finish this up. Just took a gummy. I should be able to read 17 pages in an hour. So, cold. It is very cold out there. It's dropped actually it tells me 16. It's dropped 16 degrees in the past hour. 14. The day dragged on. While the tent men worked in Biloxi, Mississippi, stacking and storing fuel and food and yet other supplies purchased with the money Mother Nature's mysterious friend had donated to them, she stayed by Knuckles' bedside, blowing weed smoke into the disfigured man's face until she'd hotboxed the sleeper car. The air inside stifling and nigh unbreathable. He slept sporadically now that his transformation and the pain associated with it had seemingly, blessedly, come to an end. Knuckles was more reptile than man now, more akin to the multicolored lizards that haunted southern porches in the summer, living off spiders and other insectile nuisances. And she knew a time would come soon when they would need to figure out what Knuckles could eat. Had his diet changed? Would they need to buy insects in bulk to satiate his hunger and keep him nourished? Or would his body continue to accept proteins like ham and pot roast, ribs and steak? And what of his blood? Even now, Knuckles, in his new skin of jagged, jutting scales, shivered with cold. Or perhaps it was only fever brought on by his body's rejection of its new hide. Mother Nature left Knuckles' side once over the course of 14 hours, and only then to find books on evolutionary metamorphosis and folklore regarding shapeshifters. She'd asked Marianne to sit with him while she was gone, and by the time Mother Nature returned with an armload of volumes on varying subjects pertaining to Knuckles' condition, Marianne was stoned out of her mind on the residual haze that lingered in the cabin car. The woman's eyes were spiderwebbed with red lightning, bloodshot and dry, her face slack with numbness, and Mother Nature bade her lie down in one of the empty bunks instead of having Marianne walk back to her own cabin car. Marianne wouldn't have made it. Mother Nature knew, and would have likely passed out after little more than a few steps. While Knuckles snored and Marianne spoke to spirits in her sleep, Mother Nature read volume after volume, researching and studying, and finally came to the conclusion that, no matter the case, evolution was a done deal. That once a creature evolved, hopes of de-evolving were squashed beneath the uncaring heels of nature. No turning back, and all that jazz. It wasn't until she dove headfirst into the fictional side of things, werewolves, wendigo, shapeshifters who required a certain phase of moon to morph into their animal aliases, or who could, even more amazingly, change at will, that she found a tale of a tribe of lizard people native to the Amazon. Folklore and nothing more. She would have said before she'd seen Knuckles change right before her eyes. Because even though Mother Nature understood the world was a weird and wild place, full of wonders and surprises, there were certain rules her kindred spirit Mother Nature lived by. For one, human beings were mammals, warm-blooded, and reptiles were cold-blooded. You had your oddities like marsupials and platypuses, but their blood, too, was warm. Far as she could far as she could find, there were no cold-blooded mammalian creatures, and she could only assume that the agony Knuckles had gone through during his assimilation had come from the side effects of his blood going against its very nature. Growing scales couldn't have been pleasant either, she supposed. As she read up on the lizard people of the Amazon, as written by Sir Blake Messing in the late 1800s, she skipped the section involving his protagonist's voyage into the jungle and his battles therein, and honed in on the tribe as its members were described in the book. This passage specifically caught her attention. It was with great sorrow that Captain Montgomery lost one of his own, a man called Chambers, who'd been bitten in battle and had, most unavoidably, become one of the monstrosities whom his crew had fought bravely and diligently. Captain Montgomery stayed at the man's bedside all through the night, but eventually succumbed to the seduction of sleep, and when he awoke, found that Chambers had vanished while he'd slumbered, no doubt to join his new brethren, his adopted kin. Mother Nurture didn't believe in coincidence, nor did she believe that all fiction was indeed fictional in origin. The best lies held an element of truth. One must simply see through the embellishments to find the facts. Did she think that Sir Blake Messing of Yorkshire had dealt with these lizard people of the Amazon himself? No. What had likely occurred was this. Messing perhaps had heard a story about Amazonian lizard men from a friend, who'd likely heard it from an acquaintance, and so on. But if one were to trace the story back to its first teller, one might find that the first to spread the tale had visited Greenbolt, Louisiana, and had encountered a race of humanoid lizards with incandescent eyes who walked upright and haunted the preternaturally silent woods after nightfall. Perhaps this original storyteller had lost a friend to the lizard people's numbers. Maybe this friend had even been bitten and had, eventually, changed into something akin to what now lay before her, snoring in his bunk. All speculation on her part, of course, but life was curious, and Mother Nurture curiouser. Mother, Knuckles hissed from his cot. She hadn't noticed the cessation of his snoring, and his sudden words caused her to jump. Seeing this, Knuckles covered his face with a hand and said, "Sorry. I know I'm horrid." "You are no such thing, my love," she said, petting his forearm, letting him know he was not something, someone, damn you, her eyes would like to avoid. "How are you? Is the pain better?" Knuckles nodded slowly. "Completely gone. Doesn't hurt at all. It's like it's like nothing happened. But it did. Just look at the state of me." He cringed at the sibilant nature of his speech. "I'm sorry. It's the tongue. It gets caught on certain words." His bunched fist battered the bedclothes. "God damn it!" "He's okay, Knuckles. You're not okay, and I understand that. But you're still you to me, to all of us. You need to know that. I will not discount how you feel. I cannot imagine what you must be going through, but all of us are here for you. You are loved, my dear, beautiful man. Loved and wanted. And we will all be here for you, no matter what you look and sound like. Please believe that. Have I ever lied to you?" "No. No, you ain't ever lied to me. Thank you, Mother." "You're welcome, my love. Would you like a joint? I have plenty," she said with a sly grin. "I think I need to sober up. That stuff of yours has me in some kind of state." "Understood. I'll get some air circulating." Mother Nurture opened the door at the end of the cabin car and returned to Knuckles' bedside, saying, "It should clear out soon. I can already feel a nice breeze pouring in.
Yeah,
He nearly moaned.
that feels great.
Good. Is there anything I can get you? Are you hungry?
God damn it, I'm starving. I'd like a leg of lamb and a whole mess of fried taters.
She smiled. I'll see what I can do.
Where are we?
He asked as he sat up in bed as much as the bunk above him would allow, which wasn't much at all, and he ended up in an awkward leaning position, braced on one elbow, neck craned so he could still see her. Biloxi, Mississippi. We're loading up on fuel and supplies before we leave for Mobile. Should be there by tomorrow morning.
Is everyone safe? Everyone okay?
You are such a beautiful soul, Knuckles. You know that? Here you are, laid up in bed, having gone through catastrophic change, yet still worrying about others. All the while, everyone else is worried about you. Speaks to the quality of your character. But I already knew you were one of the good ones. Still, it's nice to be reminded, isn't it? We're not always kind to ourselves, and we do not always see our strengths for what they are. Namely, strengths. Anyway, yes, my love, everyone is safe and sound, and it seems all our financial problems are at an end. For now, thanks to. Well, you'll see. It's a long story. And I'd much prefer if you met our Savior instead of me telling his story for you. I am reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson, my new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo. You can buy a paperback or an ebook off Amazon, or you can buy a signed copy from me. Just a side note, the signed copies, I am out of signed copies. I have ordered more today. They should be here in a week or two. So just keep in mind, it might be 3 weeks to a month before you get your copy, but they will come. Everybody's orders that have already ordered, they all went out today. I know. Good problem to have that I sold out, but still, I got to let you guys know it's going to be a minute. 15. The Cortez family circus arrived in Mobile, Alabama, the next morning. Hank had been elevated to interim tent boss while Knuckles continued to rest and regroup, and the newly appointed supervisor waited not a second to get everyone up and motivated to work the minute they reached town. As Mother Nurture made her rounds with Uncle Jaime, Hank could be heard hollering, "Mind that rigging! No, no, anchor it! Right there! Right! Get that boat secured on that guy wire! Cut something in half! Goddamn Alabama Clay!" "He's working out just fine, I see." Uncle Jaime chuckled as they passed a group of men erecting the big top's interior stands. Soon, the tent would cover all, and they'd be ready for the show. But as they walked through the construction, Mother Nurture couldn't help but worry about the future of Knuckles where his job was concerned. The tent men worked in daylight and rested at nighttime while the show played out, and she knew that, in his present condition, Knuckles would not want to be seen under the revealing light of the sun. She wasn't concerned with how the other tent men would accept him. They were, each and every one of them, their own uniquely damaged individual, and they didn't focus on superficial things like appearance. All of them owned scars and deformations, and they would no doubt accept Knuckles back into their fold as a mother accepts an ugly child. But would Knuckles accept himself? That was the question. Hank is a good man, strong and firm. He'll do fine until Knuckles returns or decides on a new role, Mother Nurture said, waving to Sandoval, where he was drinking a pint on the steps leading up to his beloved engine. Sandoval wiggled his fingers at her mockingly, but that was duck for you. Surprises me not one bit that you've been worried about what we're going to do with him, Uncle Jaime said, his head on a swivel, surveying the work in progress. He could, she knew, take in everything all at once and spot even the smallest issue from 50 paces. Her uncle had been doing this so long, his entire life, from childhood to present, and crisis control came naturally to him. But today was moving along without a hitch, which should have eased her nerves some. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that some tragedy loomed on the horizon, some creeping evil slithering under the day, waiting to break the surface and rear its ugly head. She forced herself into the moment and out of her likely needless worries. If something happened, they would deal with it as it came. Until then, they had people to entertain and money to make. Not so much what we're going to do with Knuckles as much as what Knuckles is going to do with himself, she said. Oh, that makes sense. He's going to be in his own mind for a good amount of time, I feel. Men are far less concerned with their outward appearance than women, but it does something to a man nonetheless when he's changed to the extent that Knuckles has changed. He'll need a period of adjustment, and I'm just glad we have Hank to take over until that period has ended, if it ever ends. True. Hank is a blessing. Have you seen Quill today? I haven't seen her at all. I saw a paper this morning when we arrived, but Quill's not left her car, I don't believe. She's over in the mess car. She came to me first thing this morning. Said she wanted to work the kitchen today. Why? I wanted to ask her a question, is all. I'll head over now, if you don't need me for anything else. No, I can manage. I know you can. Love you. And I'll come find you before the show starts. Good enough. Stay out of trouble. And keep your eyes peeled for that man of yours. I'd forgotten all about him, she said with a sly grin. Uncle Jaime laughed. Of course you have. Now go on, get. She parted ways with her uncle and made a beeline for the kitchen car, thinking that she had indeed forgotten about that man of hers, as Uncle Jaime had put it, because her mind had been focused solely on Knuckles and his well being since they'd left the horror show that was the woods just outside of Greenbolt. But now, that man of hers was all that was on her mind. She scanned the fence line of Arlington Fairgrounds, Mobile's oldest recreational site, hoping to find that man of hers, standing beyond the chain link, searching for her in return, but found no one who so much as resembled him. Sporadic faces could be seen here and there on the other side of the fencing, but mostly those gawking faces belonged to children who'd come to watch the circus set up. Adults were present too, but their numbers were far fewer. Today was Thursday, and the circus would open Friday evening. Why these children weren't in school was beyond her. Perhaps their parents and guardians had allowed them the day away from learning to watch the progress? Or maybe all these little souls had skipped school, as children were wont to do when something special steals their attention from the monotony of the classroom. She found Marianne inside the mess car, stirring a pot of camp stew, which exuded an exquisite odor, meaty and tomatoey. An air of baking bread underlined the aroma of simmering stew, and she couldn't wait to dip a flaky chunk of fresh loaf into a bowl of thick and hearty soup. Lunch today was going to be good, and she might have seconds. Damn her thighs. Quill, Mother Nurture said, at a distance from the woman so as not to spook Marianne. Last thing she wanted was hot camp stew slung in her face, and Quill was known to be jumpy when she was focused. Hey, Mother, how's Knuckles? He's as well as can be imagined. He's coping, I think, and that's always a good first step. Truer words and all that. Marianne brought the scoop of her ladle to her mouth, blew wisps of steam from the boiling mixture, then sipped tentatively at the edge of the spoon. Good? Mother Nurture asked. Amazingly so. Here. Marianne offered her the ladle. Have some. No thanks. I'll have some when it's done. When's lunch today, you think? Around 1, I guess. Bread's baking now. I know, I can smell it. Isn't it heavenly? It certainly is. Look, I wanted to apologize. For what? Marianne set the ladle down next to the burner and the pot on top of it and gave Mother Nurture her full attention. For getting you stoned. I know you don't like the stuff, and, well, now, I might have changed my mind. Never have I slept better than I did last night. I had this, I don't know, this preconceived notion that I wouldn't want to see what I was capable of when not in control of my body. You've seen Paper drunk. You know what I mean. Her brother Peter was an idiot when he was in his cups. Mother Nurture knew. The last time Peter had drunk alcohol, she and Uncle Jaime had found the man up a tree, a mile from where they'd last seen him. Once they'd gotten him to stop crying and climb down, Peter had tried to start a fight with a stray cat they'd come across on their way back to the circus grounds. Took quite the effort on their part, Uncle Jaime and hers, to calm the man down. Peter was usually so calm and collected that his sudden drunken anger had spooked her, for she knew that folks were themselves when they were inebriated. Inhibitions fell away, revealing their hidden nature. And to think Peter was a belligerent, violent man beneath his cool exterior was to think an earthworm capable of genocide. Anyway, Marianne continued, I had no idea how much it would relax me. And the dreams, my heavens, the dreams I had. Peter and I were still together, connected, and we were running a race against thoroughbreds. Pure madness, but so much fun. Are your dreams ever like that when you smoke? Mother Nurture laughed. At times, I tend not to dream when I smoke. It's one of the reasons I partake as much as I do. Yeah? Marianne said with a quirked eyebrow. Never would have taken you for someone plagued by nightmares. Not nightmares. Not really. Just people, places, and things I'd much rather not remember. Ah, well, enough said on that subject then. Thank you. I'll let you get back to cooking. Just wanted to apologize in case you had a bad experience. No, it was quite wonderful. I might make it a nightly routine if you have enough to spare. I do. Come see me before bed tonight, and I'll give you some more. If you don't want to smoke it, you can always bake it into sweets. It's amazing like that, and the effects are mellower, truly calming. I'll try that. Take care, Mother. You too. Mother Nurture spent the rest of the morning and afternoon doing the same thing she always did day one in a new area. She drifted from group to group, lending a helping hand to whoever needed it. She kept her eyes peeled but saw no sign of that man of hers, and by sundown, he'd slipped her mind altogether. I am reading The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. If you'd like to get a copy yourself, you can get the paperback or the ebook off of Amazon. The link's down below. You can also get a signed copy from me, but I am currently out of signed copies. It's going to be a week or two before they get here, and then it'll be a week or two before it gets to you. So if you buy a signed copy, just know it's going to be a little while. And we continue. 16. The next day, hundreds of Alabamians had gathered at the gates of the carnival, their voices a great murmur that could be heard all over the fairgrounds, in every corner, inside and out. An excited, conversing legion. Sandoval, bathed and smelling of sandalwood, freshly dressed in his derby cap, suspenders, and bow tie, took his place inside the ticket booth around 5 that evening and began accepting tickets minutes later. Bodies pressed in through the gate, all sizes, all ages, and Mother Nurture stood on the roof of her cabin car, surveying the scene as she had so many times before. Only this time, she was looking for one individual, whereas in the past, she'd have been looking for any attractive mate with whom she might wish to spend a heated evening. She reflected on her promiscuous nature as she watched the circus goers mill about. wondered why she'd spent her entire adult life bedding strangers instead of seeking a more permanent mate. Her need to be alone, to be content in loneliness, as she told Uncle Jaime, was but one reason why. If she never fully gave her heart to another, no one could ever break it. Losing her beloved parents had been bad enough, had caused her to draw inward, to hide behind the wall of grief over their deaths, yet she'd allowed herself to love, platonically, since then. What did it matter if romantic love broke her heart? With regards to her emotional security, was not familial love just as fleeting and dangerous? Why then should she be so opposed to one over the other? These were the mysteries of life, the cognitive dissonance over which so many of us ruminate and worry. You could have two contrasting thoughts, two warring bits of knowledge, and believe them both equally. For instance, her refusal to subscribe to religion when she had witnessed so many unexplainable events, so many impossibilities. Her choosing family over romance was but one conundrum in a pile of them, a needle in the proverbial haystack that was her life experience. Perhaps she had missed him, that man of hers. After all, tonight's crowd was one of the biggest in recent memory, even bigger than the one in Los Angeles, California, a month and a half back. That man of hers could have very well shaved his scruffy face or altered his appearance in any manner of ways, but why would he? Wouldn't he want her to recognize him? Shouldn't he be out there waving his hands over his head, making a scene, drawing everyone's attention to him, over here, here, here? She knew he loved her. That much had been painfully clear the last time they were together, and, in her own guarded way, she'd come to terms with her feelings for him, albeit tentatively. She'd also realized, with more than a modicum of disgust with herself, that her obsession with him was partially due to what lay below his waistline. Such a male thought, she chided herself, being focused on someone's genitals, what pleasures they could provide, yet she couldn't help it. Had she fetishized him? To an extent, yes, she had. Her fascination with the uniqueness of him, even now, stirred something inside of her. Total recall and sense memory of their coupling warmed her, caused a pulse to throb between her own legs. She wanted him, all of him. But yes, she needed what lurked betwixt his thighs. In her short adult life, short compared to so many others in this world, she'd bedded men and women without prejudice. Women were softer, kinder lovers, but there was also something she coveted about the reality of male lust, the thrusting, pounding violence of them inside of you, the knowledge that, at any moment, your lovemaking could turn vicious. Before that man of hers, she'd known a clear delineation between male and female lovers. She made love to women and fucked men. Vulgar, but nonetheless true. Is that what we did? She asked that man of hers when he'd called what they had done making love. She'd shared his preference for the term lovemaking because there had been something beautiful, serene, and even magical about the way he'd made her feel, the way his tongue caressed, the manner in which his hands gently mapped her flesh, the tender glide of his length inside her. She really needed to stop this train of thought before she required a change of pants. The mass of bodies outside of the tent thinned, and the big top imperceptibly throbbed and swelled with life, until only a handful of circus goers remained visible on the grounds. Yet none of them were him, that man of hers. She climbed down the ladder that lent access to her inner sanctum and left out the rear door. A minute later, she'd entered the big top through the rear flap, passing practicing performers and caged animals, until she reached her uncle, who was dressed in full ringmaster regalia, waiting in the wings for the show to start. She pulled up beside him and whispered in his ear, "Big crowd tonight." "Yes, biggest we've seen since Portland. Even bigger than LA. They're excited too, and amiable. Hank says there's not been a single fight or drunken nuisance since Sandy started letting them in. It's going to be a night to remember, I just know it." She smiled. Maybe she had confused prosperity as dread when she'd felt something coming yesterday afternoon. Her uncle might be right. Tonight might be the best night they'd had in a long, long time, but all that was yet to be seen. Then again, she hadn't found that man of hers. Could her sense of incoming doom be related to him? She was no fortune teller. They left that to Marianne and her cards. But she couldn't help but feel like something was coming. Something life-changing. Or ending. No, she told herself. You will not think like that. You will not worry catastrophe into fruition. She felt like a Christian debunking the devil and chuckled at herself. Something funny? Uncle Jaime asked. Just thought of something humorous is all. I have a good show. I need to see if I can locate that man of mine, as you so specifically put it. No, is that what you're doing? Why didn't you ask? Uncle Jaime parted the flaps that led out to the main ring just an inch and pointed to a grouping of circus goers directly ahead. There he is. Been here for an hour already. She saw him, that man of hers, standing among a gaggle of women in, oddly enough, their Sunday best, looking primed and ready for the Lord's gospel. That man of hers was dressed strikingly in a suit and tie of gray pinstripe. He hadn't shaved, but he had trimmed that wily beard of his down to almost stubble, and his hair was greased back and shone wetly in the lights overhead. My God, she gasped, for her view of him had, quite literally, stolen her breath. Down, girl, Uncle Jaime said with a laugh, and do be so kind as to use your own bed this evening. I can still smell you on my couch. She blushed. Sorry about that. No? No, you're not. Now go get him. Now go get him, Mother, and thank him for all of us. She left the tent the way she'd come in and moved around to the front, entering once more through the audience's entrance. She had no trouble judging the position of where that man of hers was standing and pushed through the crowd to get to him. She tapped his shoulder and said, Can I help you with something? He turned to her, and when their eyes met, his lit up like fireworks, bursting to life in a starless sky. To be seen by him was to be a diamond appraised by an educated eye. She only wished she could see herself as he saw her, but that gift was his alone, and she would have been lying had she said she was not jealous. Ego be damned. I have something for you, he said. It's outside in my car. Without another word, she followed him out of the tent and into the rest of her life. 17. Oh, by the way, we're reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson, my new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo. If you want to get a paperback or an ebook off Amazon, those links are down there. It's coming to other places too. It's just for some odd reason it's taking forever for them to approve it. I've had some errors that I've had to fix. So anyways, it's taking a while, but it's going. If you want a signed copy from me, that link's down there also, but I am currently out of signed copies. If you want, you can go ahead and order it, but it's going to be about 3 weeks to a month because it's going to take a week or two just to get to me before I can get the new signed copies out. Anyways, all those links are down there if you're interested. 17. He'd retrieved the planner from the front seat of his car, and then they'd retreated inside, away from the noise of the circus come to life. Now, They stood in her greenhouse, him with a pot of thyme clutched in his hands, and she with her heart in hers. Think you can give them a home? He asked. So, you plan on staying with us, huh? She asked, only slightly playing with him, wanting him to say it. Please, for the love of everything, let him say that he would never leave her again. If you'll have me, he said, and she nearly melted under the heat of his eyes. She reached for the pot, and the thyme growing abundantly inside, and he relinquished it. She placed it gently beside her marijuana plants, then threw her arms around him. He embraced her in return, his hands running up and down her back, stroking her, wanting her, loving her. You silly gringo, of course I'll have you. They made love in her cabin, and when they were done, they lay together, naked and perspiring, simply, pleasurably, quietly enjoying the presence of the other. He petted her hair, and she ran her nails up and down his bare thigh. She was his church, and he her congregation, there for the sole purpose of worship, their passion so much greater than Christ's for mankind. He told her of his grandfather's fate, and she cried with him. She told him of Chuko, and he wept with her. They shared all their experiences up until that moment, until they knew each other as more than lovers. She held him as he spoke of his mother's passing, and she asked why he did not tell her when they'd last seen one another, and he said, You were the bandage I needed, I reckon, and being there with you, I just didn't want my pain spoiling anything. I had no idea if I'd ever see you again. She apologized for refusing to let him join them, and he said he understood that it was for the best, as he might not have ever known his grandfather's fate had he left with her that night. Then, in the glow of their love, they simply lay together as one, and let come whatever may, together, together, like a mantra, together. When the ever present noise of the circus dwindled down to nothing, they rose and got dressed, together, and they went out into the night, together, and walked to the now quiet fairgrounds, together, and she introduced him to Peter and Marianne, to Hank and Sandoval, to the tentmen, and finally Uncle Jaime, together, every one of them thanking him for his help, many of them calling him their savior, and him blushing and saying, It was my pleasure, and happy to help. I'm glad I could. What's your name, son? Uncle Jaime asked toward the end of their first meeting. All these words have passed between us, and I still don't know your name. Mother Nurture opened her mouth to say it, the name she'd come to know. A name she hadn't known was loathed by this man of hers, but he spoke before she could. These days, I think I'm going by Father Time. Thyme, like the herb. Uncle Jaime glanced at Mother Nurture and laughed. Ah! Her uncle cried. Isn't that something? Father Time and Mother Nurture. There's something of that fate you keep harping about, eh, Mother? What about, she said to Father Time, and he shook his head as she said his dead name, the look in his eyes burying that collection of letters forever and always, for both of them. I like my new name better, he said. Actually, Mother Nurture said, so do I. Pages are sticking together. Okay. They were married that night, upon her request, with Uncle Jaime officiating. Hank and the other 8 tent men erected a podium between the rear of the tent and the train, solely for the event, and Uncle Jaime took his place upon the pedestal, still dressed in his showman's garb, their family of performers and laborers standing behind Mother Nurture and Father Time, a smile painted on every face, even Sandoval's, although the man was most assuredly drunker than hell and all its demons by now. But still, he seemed glad to be there for the occasion, and there, from the shadows between Mother Nurture's cabin car and the tent men's sleeping car, was the soft glow of incandescent eyes. And Mother Nurture knew that her friend was there, watching, sharing this night with her as much as he could allow. When the spectacle of the event was over, the crowd separated into groups, and the drinking began in earnest, and the newlyweds passed a joint back and forth between them. Merry conversation was had, and all was well, and Mother Nurture's sense of impending doom vanished entirely. She was present, here, with her family and her new husband, together, and all was right with the world. Hours passed, and the crowd dwindled as drunken circus folk shambled, stumbled, staggered for their respective beds. Uncle Jaime, on the other hand, wasn't quite ready for the evening to end. He stepped upon the rickety podium the tent men had constructed and raised a tumbler of whiskey to the sky. "Hear ye, hear ye," the ringmaster slurred. "I have something I like to say." Smiling, Mother Nurture turned from her husband to face her drunken uncle, and heard an odd sort of thrumming, a metallic whispering, barely audible, vibrating in her ears. She shrugged it off as a side effect of the marijuana and gave her uncle her complete attention. "I had known the woman we all know lovingly as Mother Nurture all her life. Her father, my brother, may God rest his and his wife's soul. I would like to say a few words about this wonderful night that I have been waiting for my entire life. I still recall the day when Mother was born. She was smart as a whip right out the gate. She has my brother's gift for language, which I think she's more accomplished at than him. And and heavens, maybe no more whiskey for me. I've not been this intoxicated since. What is that? Father Time whispered into her ear. What? She asked. Don't you hear that? Yeah, but I thought it was all in my head. Blink, 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 blink. Shit! Hank cried. Get that fort! Leave it to me to make a fool of myself on this, my niece's wet boom. Something whipped over the heads of those gathered, quick as a lightning strike, there and gone. Mother Nurture would have missed it had she not been looking up over the crowd at Uncle Jaime. Ding! Uh, Uncle Jaime's voice trailed off. Something was wrong. Mother Nurture could see by the look in her uncle's eyes that something was terribly, horribly wrong. What? I. Uncle Jaime managed before he fell backward off the podium and out of sight. Mother Nurture dashed from the crowd and rounded the pedestal, her hands going instantly to her face, covering her eyes, even though she'd already seen, even though nothing could remove the stain of the scene from her mind's eye. She was the first one to see, to truly see, and was, therefore, the first one to scream. Other screams would join her own, but she would not hear them. Father Time yanked her into him and hugged her away from the horror of what she had seen, that she still saw, that she would forever see every time she closed her eyes, for weeks, months, years to come. Uncle Jaime, lying in the grass of Arlington Fairgrounds, cut in half at the waist, one hand slapping weakly at the gory grass, trying to find his legs. Now, where could they be? I just had them. And Frank's frantic voice rising above all the other frantic voices, lamenting, "It was the goddamn guy wire! The guy wire! That goddamn guy wire snap! Goddamn thing just..." And then Mother Nature was falling, felled. That's the end of chapter 2. First intermission starts next Wednesday. That's what we're on now. So we are at page 157, I believe. Yeah, 157. We start the first intermission, which goes each one of these books. There's a total of 5 intermissions. There's going to be 5 books. Total of 5 intermissions, but this one cuts this book in half. As like the first 2 chapters are an extended prologue, and then the story really gets going in chapter 3. And yeah, you got to read 157 pages. Yeah, but anyways, trust me, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. All right, so on Wednesday we start first intermission. The show must go on, and all the intermission. Never mind, you'll find out. I'm about to tell all the goodly bits. Anyway, so thank y'all for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed that. This VOD will be up next Wednesday, as long as I remember to post it. I've remembered to do the past 3. So, anyways, bye, Lazy, and anyone else that might be here. Bye, Mike. Y'all have a good night. Until next time, I've been E, you've been you. This is me reading my new book, The Last Freak Show, Flame and Fortune. Links are down there in the doobly-doo. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.